Today I'm going to show you some pictures from my own childhood to show you how quickly and easily shame gets placed into us, and it's happened to all of us. Now, because you don't know me and you haven't seen millions of pictures of me like myself, you may not be able to pick up on the subtle little changes in each picture or feel the emotion coming from the picture because they're not from you. But I guarantee you this, after you see this video, go get your own childhood pictures and look through them. Now with this as a reference, you're going to be able to see how you were shamed as a child. Not because your parents are bad, and this isn't to blame parents. This is to bring us into reality that this is why our life isn't working. We're all caught in the worst day cycle, and until we take ownership of this and start to heal it, we can't achieve our dreams. So here's the first picture. Do you see this? I have to find the right spot where the camera doesn't blur it out. All right, so can you see my mother and I are completely what's called attuned. We are in alignment with each other. We're both looking in the same direction. Our expressions are the exact same. So what she's feeling right now is exactly what I'm feeling. Now you can see by her expression, because she's older and her emotions are more developed, that she's in a basically calm, neutral place. And therefore, I'm mirroring it. See? Children don't become what our parents say, they become the emotional condition of our parents. That if you've heard my videos, I say that all the time. So even if your child is 40 years old, they are mirroring your emotional condition. And here's the proof of how it happens. All right, so I am mirroring my mother's emotional condition, which is basically neutral. Everything's okay. Now, watch this. The attunement has deepened. Do you see? My mother and I are now deeply connected. She's looking into me. She's leaned into me. Do you see? I've matched it. My head is now tilted into her. My expression is starting to change into a smile to match hers. We are creating intimacy with each other. My mother is fully present for me emotionally. She is, you can see that in her eyes, in her expression, in her body language. There are no words. See, this is what parenting isn't words. This is parenting right here. My mother is completely present and attuned and emotionally available to me. And so you can see what that does to me. I'm open, I'm expressive, there's joy. You can see that I am living spontaneously in life. Now, look at what happens. Look at my mother's expression. Look at the disgust. Like I can feel her tongue against her teeth, because I remember that look when, especially, that was a look we saw a lot when my mother, because she couldn't voice herself. And so when she would stuff her anger, that's what it looks like. Now, do you see what I've done? I am no longer attached to my mother. Now I'm looking at the camera. Do you see how flat and expressionless my face has become? I am now experiencing shame. Shame is abandonment. I have been abandoned by my mother. Her emotions, just like an umbilical cord, are going right inside of me. I am filled with fear, which is stage 2 of the worst day cycle. See, this is trauma right here. The worst day cycle, 4 stages: trauma, fear, shame, and denial. I have experienced trauma because I am experiencing my mother's emotions. That's what happens to all of us as a child. It sends me into fear. So do you see my expression is now looking at the camera, probably my father, looking for help. Dad, Mom's consuming me with her emotions. I don't know what to do with this. These aren't mine. I'm scared to death. I'm feeling all of her anger and resentment or whatever she's going through. Dad, will you please help me? Dad is operating the camera. I'm being abandoned in that moment. No one's attuning to me. No one's recognizing my need for safety and care and love. Boom. Shame. Expressionless, flat, numb, blank, dissociative, empty, hurt, powerless. That's all of us. Now, look at this. This is my granny. Look at her face, just like my mom's, right? Now, my mom was adopted, but do you see how my mother even picked up her adopted mother's disdainful look? And do you see the look in me? Same thing, empty, blank, cavernous, alone, helpless, powerless. That is how toxic shame is created. Toxic shame is the underlying sense of feeling of being worth less because of abandonment, and it's placed into us by our caregivers, and you just saw how easily it's placed into all of us. And it happens in childhood, all throughout our childhood. The problem is that shame has now become internalized. Instead of it being an episodic event where we, have a moment of it, it is now a state of being. So a good example is the angry person. It's not that they get angry, it's that they have now become angry. We know those people, you just see it on their face, they're always angry. That's internalized shame. Or the person with the big bug eyes or blank, like all these people, just go somewhere public and look at people's expressions, how you'll see anger, sadness, blank, dissociative. Do you see people smiling? Do you see people in joy? I sure don't. All I see is horrific pain all day, every day. Everyone's blank, numb, hurt, dejected, powerless. I don't care how successful you are. Look at this Wendy Williams, the talk show host. Those bug eyes that she has, I'm sorry, this isn't criticism of her, but she's scared to death. She's been scared her whole life, yet here she is on TV, this big celebrity. Now she's falling apart. People can't understand why. I'm like, my God, it was all over her. This woman shouldn't have been on TV. It was the worst thing for her. This woman needs care. But our society has no clue. We don't teach about this stuff. No offense, but I've been telling people for years, that woman is hurt. Horrifically hurt. Yet everyone's latching onto her and taking her advice, and she's just crumbling. Well, that's heartbreaking. This poor woman, nobody saw her. She hasn't been seen her whole life. That's why her eyes are so big. Somebody noticed me. And then, all the enhancements and everything. She's just like, will somebody notice that I'm hurt? Well, that's all of us. And you see, that's the successful person. So what happens is we lose our authentic self, and we now embody and become a false, shame-based self. As I said, I don't believe there's a single person on this planet that is not a shame-based self, that has not lost their authentic self. I don't care how successful or lack of success you have. I can sit with anyone and immediately see and point out their shame. It is all of us. And that's the premise of the worst day cycle that I wrote about in my book, Your Journey to Success. If you've never heard about it, you don't know it, I'd encourage you to pick up a copy of the book. If you don't want to do that, then I'd encourage you, go to my YouTube channel, look for the Worst Day Cycle playlist, and watch my 5-part series on Reclaim Your Authentic Self by Becoming Trauma-Informed. I lay out the basics of the worst day cycle, and you'll see it's everybody. It's not just some of us. This is a human dynamic that I personally believe needs to be taught, because the reason the world is the way it is and all the disarray and it's getting worse and worse, well, that's the denial piece. That's part of the worst day cycle. We can't admit these things. We can't see ourselves. And so it has a ripple effect in every aspect, our relationships. That's why we keep going back to narcissists or whatever it may be, our financial situation, our health, everything revolves around this. And so until we become experts in the worst day cycle, in healing the pain from our past, accepting our perfect imperfections, and developing the knowledge, skills, and tools to conquer our trauma, fear, shame, and denial, we just don't have much of a shot. We will never be able to walk in our authentic selves. So, at the heart of toxic shame is an abandonment. And many different parenting styles. I could do probably a 6-hour video on all the different parenting styles. So I encourage you to pick up this book by Susan Forward, Toxic Parents, because the biggest difficulty is we don't teach what healthy parenting is. So most people comment on my post, well, my childhood was perfect. No, it wasn't. Look at how easy I showed you shame crept in. And this is everybody. And so it's a lack of information, a lack of knowledge of how destructive all of our parenting is. And because face it, almost all of us have been raised by people between the ages of 14 and 30. Do you know a 14-year-old, 16-year-old, 18-year-old, 25-year-old, 30-year-old who's got it figured out emotionally? I've never met one. Never. And they're raising kids. Even someone in their 40s. Like, I'm 55 now. I'm considered an expert in these dynamics. And if I were to have a child right now, I would estimate between 30 and 50% of the time I'd get it right. It is an overwhelming responsibility and requires a massive amount of skill to try and navigate without making a mistake. It's impossible. It is literally impossible. And so if you're stuck in the belief that your childhood isn't affecting you, that's how much your childhood is affecting you, because you're in that much denial of the pain you experienced. But primarily, people that have been toxically shamed, you know, the major ways is a parent who smothered them. This is the new helicopter parent, like this is the Facebook parent. This is the parenting style, you know, everyone gets a trophy. This is, you know, what we're seeing a lot of is this new shift was, oh, we have to love our kids. Well, what they did was they advocated a parent who derives their emotional worth and fills their emotional hole through their child. And so what you can see this, it's experienced as instead of the umbilical cord going to feed the child, so emotionally our job as a parent is to feed the child. You can see how my mother and grandmother at times couldn't feed me emotionally. They're perfectly imperfect. Okay, well, this is chronic, where the mother or father, instead of being present and attuned to the child, they suck the emotional life out of the child. And the basic these are the parents that are like, oh my God, don't grow up. I can't stand, like they cry or lament. Oh my God, off to fourth grade, I'm losing my baby. You know, they just need their child close to them. They need their child to love them. They need the child to value them and need them, because they don't know these parents don't know how to do it for themselves. They don't know how to create that with their spouse. And so those parents who are really emotionally needy, it's under the guise of, no, I'm a loving, caring parent. No, sorry, that is way beyond care. That is not care. That is an obsessive compulsion and need from the child, of that parent who needs their child desperately. That is a severely toxically shamed parent who's now sucking the life out of the child, all right? My mother did that to me, okay? Both my parents, actually. Almost all parents do, all right? In some form or another. The other main way is the parent who has too much structure. They're rigid, perfectionistic, legalistic. You can't make a mistake. And so what ends up happening is everything, you're not allowed to be a child and explore and make mistakes. And so you're constantly like on edge, oh my gosh, because unfortunately what parents do when they make a mistake, when a child makes a mistake, is they send the message, you're bad. Not your behavior or that choice wasn't your best, but you as a person for making that choice are bad. That's the perfectionistic parent, the legalistic parent. Then there's the parent with no structure. Well, look at this. Most kids nowadays are being raised with no parents. They're being raised by daycare. Because, look, I don't know if both parents want to work. I think it's great that women want to have their own life, but there's a consequence to that. Now, men could stay home. Like, I'm not saying women have to stay home. Men could be the primary caregiver. But children that grow up that are being raised by nannies and by daycare centers, that's abandonment. Like, you're shaming your child. I'm sorry. That's just all there is to it. You can't create attunement because every single day that child loses, breaks attunement, complete confusion. They have no clue who to attach to. It's severely shaming to a child because they just experience repeated abandonment over and over and over. Well, this is the life we want. Adults want to have their own experiences. I get it. Like, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying get into reality of the choice you're making. You are raising a toxically shamed child. That doesn't make you bad. It's just truth. And look, we're going to make mistakes as a parent. The point is just own it and put a plan in place to go, okay, I want this life. Okay, that means my child's going to hurt. Well, what can I do to address that? There are other things plans I can put in place to try and mitigate that, because like I said, even if you're an expert, you're going to make mistakes and hurt your child. So don't get all shame-based. See, people hear me are going to shut me off and get really angry at me. Their shame will come up because, oh my God, I don't want to hear that I'm a bad parent. I'm not saying you're a bad parent. I'm saying you're human. And you get to decide where you want to be human. And we're all going to make mistakes, and we're all going to choose things that are less than loving and less than kind. And that's okay. The key is to take ownership of it, I've decided to have this life, which means my child will suffer. Well, one, I need to own that truth. And two, I need to put a plan in place to try and mitigate that as much as possible. Now, on the other side, I could stay home and be miserable and shame my child that way. Like either way you go, you're going to shame your child. So just get into reality that it's happened to all of us, that we're all going to do it, and let's just start owning it and addressing it. Because those who don't end up this way, the parent who could never admit they made a mistake. And to me, that's the most egregious. The people that watch my videos and the parents who go, well, I didn't hurt my kids. Man, my heart breaks for the children of those parents. Wow, what it must have been like to live under that dictatorship. Whew. I lived it. My dad couldn't admit his, That's not true. He would say at times, but we couldn't discuss it because he was so filled with shame. I mean, it was sad, really. My dad would kind of go, well, I would have liked to have done better, but we couldn't discuss about what he meant by that. That was as far as he could go. And in the end, I can have grace that was as far as he could go because he wasn't taught this and he was so horrifically shamed, okay? Finally, there's the no structure. And basically the underlying message here is hurry up and grow up so I don't have to take care of you. All right? So you have the parent who suffocates the child who needs them close to them so that they can use the child to meet their own needs, emotional needs, because they don't know how to meet them themselves under the guise of I'm a nice, loving parent who cares, and these are the rescuing parents, and go in and, they're the parents screaming at the games and fixing grades and all this stuff. The college admission scandal, those parents, that's toxic shame, like horrific shame what they did to those kids, all right? These are the ones, don't grow up because I need you close to me because, see, I don't trust you to get good enough grades or to navigate life, so I'm going to buy your way into it. Do you see how devaluing that type of parenting is when we rescue our kids like that? It's saying to them, you are worth less, and you don't have the ability unless I bestow it upon you with my money, my intellect, or my incredible skills as a parent. You need me. That's toxic, all right? Then there's the no structure, which is, look, I just need you to grow up, and this was a lot of the parenting I experienced. I just need you to grow up, and I did this to my kids a lot too. Left them out alone, just expected them to figure out life on their own because that's what I did. I thought it was the right thing to do. I see now it wasn't. And finally, there's too much structure. So I'm going to read to you some things so you can understand a little bit about what it's like to experience toxic shame. This is from Bradshaw, and then I'm going to give you 25 or so keys so you can look in your life. And you'll see, once I rattle these off, you'll see all of us are filled with toxic shame. This isn't just somebody. We're all in this together, all right? So as Bradshaw puts it, when we're exposed without any way to protect ourselves, like those pictures, I couldn't protect myself, we feel the pain of shame. If we're continually overexposed, shame becomes toxic. Well, parents are always, doing two things at once, preoccupied. We're all overexposed to it. When this happens, the self becomes an object of its own contempt, an object that can't be trusted. And this is why, as you'll see when I read off the 25 characteristics, you'll see the lack of trust we have in ourselves. When this happens, shame becomes internalized when we are abandoned. Abandonment is the precise term to describe how one loses one's authentic self and ceases to exist psychologically. What you're experiencing, what you're seeing in these pictures of myself is me dying emotionally. Okay? Children cannot know who they are without reflective mirrors. Mirroring is done by one's primary caregivers and is crucial in the first years of life. You could see just a couple little pictures, and that happened. My mom was a child. That happened nonstop. I wasn't mirrored. And then I had a younger brother who was born less than a year after me. So at a crucial time when I need mirroring for the growth and development of my brain, gone. My mother's not there. She's got to take care of a new one. Abandonment includes the loss of mirroring, what I just described. Parents who are shut down emotionally cannot mirror and affirm their child's emotions. The parent who's shut down emotionally is the one who tries to suffocate, is the super parent, or the legalistic parent, or the parent who has no structure. If our caretakers have a wounded inner child, which all of them do, their own neediness will prevent them from meeting their own children's needs. This is the suffocating parent. Instead, they will either be angry at their child's neediness or will try to get their own needs met by making their child an extension of themselves. It's the parenting styles I just talked about. When a child's feelings are repressed, and this is what a child has to do, is learn, okay, because survival depends on attaching to you, so I see you need me to meet your needs, so I'm going to suppress all of mine. Because abandonment is the death of us. So that means I have to abandon myself to survive childhood with you, mom and dad. So when a child's feelings are repressed, especially the feelings of anger and hurt, which we would all feel at this abandonment, a person grows up to be an adult with an angry, hurt child inside of them. This hurt child inside of them will spontaneously contaminate that person's adult behavior. In other words, we will contaminate our own adult life, and that's at the essence of the worst day cycle. We all then re-victimize ourselves. It's all we know. No one's taught us how to heal it. So here are some key signs. And you tell me if you have any of these. You'll see we have this is all of us. You might go, okay, maybe that one I don't do. But and from the least successful to the most successful, this is all of us. All right? This is just a way of being in the world. And that's why I say everybody's caught in the worst day cycle. 1, secrecy, fear of being exposed. So we go into hiding. Feeling used, treated with little or no respect. Feeling like you have little impact on yourself or others or the world. Being worried about what others think about you. Feeling like others take advantage of you. Wanting to have the last word. That's the super successful, over-empowered, falsely empowered person. Not sharing your thoughts or feelings because you're afraid because you are afraid to be embarrassed. Being afraid to look, act, or sound inappropriate or stupid. Being a perfectionist. Feeling like an outsider, or that you're different, or that you're left out. I think that's the one everyone can, even the successful ones will talk about that. Feeling suspicious, or like you can't trust others. Not wanting to be the center of attention, the wallflower. Shy, trying to hide yourself or withdraw. Shy people are shamed people. Shyness is not a natural state. It's a shame-based state. Feeling that you can't be true, feeling that you can't be your true self. Losing your identity. Feelings of regret. Anger, both at yourself and others. The feeling of self-loathing, stupidity, failure, that you're a bad person, you're a fraud, you're selfish, not enough, that you don't matter, that you're defective, unlovable, that you shouldn't have been born. I don't know anyone that's never had those feelings. You're filled with worry and fear. That's the corona thing. It's been blown out of proportion for what it is. We now have the science. It's blown way out of proportion. That's all shame. Poor relationships, relationship instability and violence. Addiction. Look, almost everyone on this planet is addicted. That's shame. At the core of all addiction is a shame-based, toxic shame, shame-based self. can't say no to yourself or others. You're triggered and have big reactions to anything that feels disapproving, critical, judging, or rejecting. There's no ability to set boundaries, or you have excessive guilt for setting them. And finally, you're grandiose, better than, arrogant, a workaholic, a doer. These are the falsely empowered. This is the piece that people don't get. The most successful people in our world have used shame, toxic shame, to motivate themselves. That's why they all crash when they get there. Divorces, addictions, suicide. Their self-loathing is the toxic shame is underneath it. And it's like, I'll fill the hole with money and accolades, but it never works. And that's why I say, man, look at our world. Our world is run by the so-called ones that have figured it out, that haven't been hurt in childhood. Well, then why is our world so dysfunctional? Because they're just as dysfunctional as the rest of us. None of us are different. I mean, we have different ways we express our perfect imperfections, but we are all perfectly imperfect. People don't like my use of the word broken. To me, see, and that's a shame-based, ooh, don't tell me I'm broken. Well, something that's broken can be put back together. Everything breaks in life. We just do our best to put it back together. That's all we're doing here. Healthy shame, on the other hand, allows for mistakes, grace, self-forgiveness, acceptance of our humanity. It sees our mistakes as a gift. See, broken? It's a gift. What's the big deal if I broke? Humpty Dumpty broke, we can put it back together again. That's all of us. It's welcoming of mistakes. It sees mistakes as our teacher, not something to be avoided. It recognizes, I need help. I'm human. I'm limited. Healthy shame is creative, and it's where learning happens. You see, when I can admit my humanness, when I can share how perfectly imperfect I am, how broken I am, when I don't get hung up on words. See, this is, this cancel culture. Everyone's trying to legislate words. That's all shame. I just can't hear a word. Think of that. I'm going to let a word destroy me. The people who get affected by words, that's because they were so shamed as a child. Like, you want to fix all of those politically correct things and cancel culture and what everyone's trying to do there, fix the shame that makes somebody incapable of navigating their own internal emotions. That's what they learned in childhood. That's how you fix that. Talk about this. Let's make the worst day cycle a class you take in college, so you can start learning to reclaim your authentic self and stop blaming somebody else just to heal the pain we all go through in childhood. Like, that should just be a college course. You get through high school, you survive your parents, you move out, and it's like, okay, now let's deal with how much my parents hurt me. Not because they're bad, but because that's just it's just part of life. We should go to college to learn how to heal from it.